I can't talk and post at the same time.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah. I just have a hard time typing. Oh, we're
I
live. We're live, Mary.
okay. Well, hello.
Hi, everybody. This is Rebecca Kosas here from CHEA, California, and I want to introduce you to my good friend Mary York. Hi, Mary.
Hi, how are you?
Good, good. Thanks for joining us. I know you're on vacation, but you said you could pop in for just a couple of minutes.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Oh, thanks so much. So I wanted to introduce you all to Mary York. Mary and her husband Scott are CHEA's regional advisory board members for the San Diego and South Orange County area. And so if you live in those areas, or if you have friends that live in those areas, I want you to take note now, because Mary is CHEA's, our boots on the ground in that area. Mary and her husband Scott. But Mary, I appreciate you joining us today. Do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and your history
Sure.
of
Yeah,
homeschool?
yeah. hmm we're actually getting ready to enter our 26th year of homeschooling. We started in 1995 when our oldest was going into second grade. And we had 5 children at the time. And for various reasons, we decided we wanted to give it a shot. Our oldest son was gifted academically, and we just felt like he was being held back a little bit by being in a really structured, tight environment. We thought,
Yeah.
well, for 1 year and see what happens. And then so here we are. We've graduated 6 of our children from our homeschooling program, and number 7 is going to be a senior next year. So it's been the best thing that we have done for our family, the best decision we've made. And there were certainly some highs and lows. And one of the things that I enjoy most about where I am now is being able to share that with other parents, with moms and dads. Scott feels the same way. Just to encourage them that the things they're going to run into, the questions they have, there is support available. I had tons of support, other women, other parents who were doing the same thing that I wanted to be doing with my children. And so it's a blessing for us to be able to give back.
Oh, that's wonderful, and that's just the neat thing about a homeschool community is so many veterans are like yourselves, even Scott, are willing to help families
Mhm.
get a good start. I mean, we walk into this, you remember probably like I do, walking in thinking, is this going to work or not? Yeah,
Am I going to ruin my children? Everybody's telling me I'm going to ruin my children. And it's just simply not true.
not true.
Actually turned out to be the exact opposite because of the advantages that you have when you private homeschool that you don't have when you're not with your children, for the better part of a day. Really surprising, wonderful things that we never anticipated came into being through homeschooling. And it's just a good way to go with the kids.
Amen. I agree. So tell me how you help homeschoolers and homeschool groups and group leaders there in your
Mhm.
neighborhoods. You're down there south end of California.
Yes. So the CHEA email address for this area will be posted, and I invite anyone who has questions about homeschooling, any grade, to just pop me an email. And if you would like to have a phone conversation, include your phone number and maybe the question or two that you're thinking about, and I will within a few days call you back, and we can have a one-on-one discussion. I'm very, very happy to do that. I'm happy to, once this COVID crisis passes, to meet with groups. I can meet with a group in your church. We can talk about how to set up a support system right there in your church, depending on the size and the number of rooms, and how the church leadership feels about it. That's how a lot of groups get started. Just a few moms want to be together and want to get their kids together. That's what we did. We joined a support group, and that's how I learned how to homeschool, was with other moms. And I particularly paid attention to the moms who were a few years ahead of me and said, what did you do? How did you handle this problem, this concern? And then you just take a little bit from everybody and you come up with your own methods for your family. So as I mentioned earlier, the support is there and you just need to plug into it. So I can do that. I'm certainly happy to come to groups that are already organized, and we have a number of them in the area, and I can, identify them for you. They're also on the CHEA website. So if you're looking for a support group, go to the CHEA website. We have ISPs who will keep your grading for you. We have groups that just do class days. We have offer extracurricular activities. There's a lot of enrichment already available in San Diego County that you can get plugged into and then hit the street running.
Yeah, yeah, that is so wonderful. And then you spent a number of years as a private school satellite program. Were you principal or administrator? I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
administrator, chief cook and bottle washer, you know, the buck stops here, that person. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. So you have a lot of experience and wisdom to share with other homeschool group leaders if
Yes.
they're in the area and they just would like to pick your brain. That would be.
Absolutely. Be happy to do that. It's a win-win when women get together and work together for the betterment of our children, just amazing things happen. You would think, as an example, we were exposed to speech and debate 21 years ago. Same thing. Well, my husband and I said, well, we'll do it, you know, for 1 year and see. We're entering our 21st year with speech and debate, and it's been the crown jewel of our educational program for our children. We had no idea it would be that. And we didn't, either one of us know anything about speech and debate, but we saw our children were drawn to it. And you just automatically go where your children's giftings are. And that's the other beauty of homeschooling is
Right.
get to know your children so well. You and I've talked about this. We all do.
Hmm.
Relationships with your children come before academics.
Hmm.
Good, strong relationship with your children and they trust you, then the academics will follow. Much, much more smoothly. And we found, and I did, when you're pulling your children out of a traditional school environment to homeschool, one of the first things you have to do is adjust your relationship with them and build trust with them. Because often you'll hear, I know we did, but you're not the teacher. That's
Oh, yeah.
the teacher does it.
Yeah.
You know, and so you've got to break that chain of that line of thought that they have that the teacher knows more than you, the mom.
Hmm.
It takes time and patience. And it usually actually means putting academics on the back shelf, particularly since they're younger, and
Hmm.
creating a bond, you know, doing some fun things, doing things outside the box. We're at the beach day today, kids, doing a field trip because you're not in school.
Hmm.
This and build the vision for home education in their minds. And then it's much, much easier to follow your lead.
And two, I think I learned, and I'm hearing this from many parents, that you need to focus on some character development. Perhaps, as you said, we talk about building relationship. When you bring your children home, sometimes we're surprised that we need to work on some of those character qualities, like being diligent or being respectful, just respecting you as the parent, as you said. But mama, you're not the teacher. Being respectful, obedience. Obedience is a big one. If your children don't obey you, you know,
Nothing's happening. Mhm.
yeah, nothing is going to happen. It takes you half an hour to get out the door to go to the store. Can you imagine having a homeschool day if your children ignore you? So, yeah.
And see, on the surface, you might look at that as being overwhelming and such a horrible problem, but in actuality, that's life. And life starts at home. And if you're having those issues with your children, then this is the best solution. You're not going to solve the problem if you're not with them. The solution is gently one-on-one every day, building that trust, building that character into them, and
Mhm.
taking time to get to know them in a way that you wouldn't know them otherwise.
Yes, absolutely. It's just a different journey than most people think. I know many new homeschool parents, the first question asked is, where do I buy curriculum? Whereas we will say, well, let's back up and work on that relationship and work on these character training issues before we go to buy curriculum. But okay, they still want to know what curriculum to buy, Mary. What are some tips that you have for parents of young children, say preschool, kinder, first grade? What type of materials would you recommend that they get?
Well, so for the basics, you can go to any of the little department stores, the office product stores, and they have curriculum for preschool through, high school.
Mhm.
And you want to get all those, the ABC books and the beginning math books. And don't just get one. You get one Cinderella ABC book, and I can promise you, your 5-year-old is not going to know how to write their letters after that one. So you get 2 or 3. And then when you're done with those, you get a few more. So the repetition.
Okay, so you're not saying go out and spend $1,000 on.
No, 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 no,
Okay.
no, no. You use the books that you can find, locally, the coloring books, the fun books, and make it a fun activity for, your preschoolers and your kindergartners. And,
Mhm.
and like I said, repetition is key. So one little, book on how to do your letters, and they're not going to know how to write their letters. It's going to take more than that. And you'll know when they've mastered it because all of a sudden they can write their letters and they can identify them for you. And the same thing with math. It's similar to when you put your child in a high chair and you didn't know how to feed them solid food, how much, what size, shape, and you just kind of started putting it on the tray to see
Mhm.
what you're drawn to. Schooling is the same way. You'll have a bank of books from the library, from curriculum sales. There's so many places to get inexpensive books. And you just jump in with the book and you describe the pictures and you help them. A lot of homeschooling at this age happens on your lap as you
Oh,
use their hands and you trace, and you can see what they're capable of doing. And you can see some children have a very long attention span. They're going to stay on your lap and do the next page. The other one, after 2 or 3 letters, they're done and they want to go to play. Rejoice in the fact that both of them are different, and you have the ability to work with them individually. They're not being trapped in one desk. You can allow that one that needs to explore and go play with their cars to do that. This is probably the biggest thing that I learned really early on from a very, very wise woman, and that is playing is learning.
okay.
Is learning. And so when they're off playing, you need to, get rid of the idea that they're wasting time, you're wasting time, and you're getting behind in your schoolwork. So over the years, I'd had women come in and they have stacks of books this high that they probably did spend $1,000 on for their kindergartner. And they're wondering why their kindergarten is sullen and resistive and not wanting to sit down and do 20 pages.
Mhm.
They're probably not capable, and as you said, pull the books aside for a little bit and
Mhm.
just a little bit every day and learn how your child learns, what their attention span is, what they're capable of doing. And then you follow them. They will lead what they're capable of doing. And then at some point it will switch, probably around 3rd or 4th grade. And because they will have mastered by then a lot of the basic skills, then you can take more of a lead and say, okay, now we need to do this today and we need to finish it within this time frame. But
Mhm.
you pre-K and K, maybe even 1st grade, depending on where your child is, to build a relationship, to find
Mhm.
out what they do and do not know, how they learn, what they understand. And then once you've nailed that, then it makes the other years just fall right into line.
Mhm. And then you mentioned something about reading earlier. We were talking earlier, and I just want you to share that with our viewers today because that was so
The
good.
reading?
Yes, yes. You
You
were
mean going to the library or what?
just read, read, read,
Oh,
read.
read, read, read. Oh, so some days all we got done was reading. I mean, seriously, because they just, once they get the hang of being read to, they want it all the time. And I resisted a little bit, it's like, I've got to do this, this, and this, and we need to do our workbooks. And another wise mom said, no, sit down and read to them.
Mhm.
That's the important thing. They're learning words, they're learning vocabulary, they're seeing pictures in their minds. It is learning.
Mhm.
Will eventually settle on their favorite books and you'll read them 100 times.
Mhm.
Something about those books that they want to read over and over, there's this capturing their imagination, and you need to run with that. For whatever reason, I'll read this book, the 100th time, but that's what they need. So listen to that. They will tell you what they need. And we used to go to the library, and each one of mine would have a little plastic bag, and they would put in 10 books that they got to pick out, and I'd put in another 5 or 10, and we'd go to and I had 5 of them at the time. They were so excited to have their own library books. And over the course of 2 weeks, I read all of them, and then their favorites would surface.
Mhm.
Read those over and over again, and
Mhm.
bring them back in and go get, another stash of books. And it's
Mhm.
priceless, priceless time.
Oh, I just love that. And what I discovered was the repetition of reading the same books over and over again. The children learned syntax. They learned. They memorized the story, so they were learning sequencing. Because if you try to take things out of sequence, would they let you do that? No, And also nursery rhymes are just golden for helping children learn about rhyming and learning the different sounds. You're right, Mary. You can't underestimate. You can't
Mhm.
read to your children too much at this age. And I love how you simplified it. You said, number one, play. That they're learning when they play. They need lots of time to play. And number two, read to them. And they're learning so much in the process.
Yeah. And then you've had a marvelous, wonderful full day, and the kids are happy, and it's been a successful day.
Hmm.
Well, you've heard the saying, if you can teach a child to love to learn, they're set for life.
Yes.
These early years, that's exactly what you're doing. If you pile on and your focus is on the academics and getting a number of worksheets done every day, you're ignoring the purpose of what you're there for, and that is that individual child.
Hmm.
Need all those worksheets. They may need your attention. They may need to play. They may need some correction and guidance, and you need to listen to what they need that day and move forward. And if they learn to, if they love learning, then our adult children, they're avid readers. They all read different things, but they're to this day avid readers,
Hmm.
and because we made that investment early on.
Yeah, they're lifelong learners. That's what it is. When we read, we're learning still as adults.
Mhm.
Oh, Mary,
And I'll
thank
give you one quick tip from my husband, because he was great at this. He would go to these used book sales and we'd get these, the coffee table books with all the pretty pictures. He'd
you.
come home from work because I needed to finish some wash and get some dishes going, and he'd sit down on the couch, and it's not that he would necessarily reach on them, but they would go through the pictures and talk
Mhm.
about the pictures and what he saw. So dads, you can play a really vital role in this at the end of the day. Give your wife a few minutes to get caught up. Sit down with your children and read. They would just pile in on top of Scott and just let them talk about the pages, and they point to things. And it was a precious, precious time. My adult children to this day have the fondest memories of daddy reading to them when he got home from work.
Oh, that's wonderful. And I love how it's like you don't have to read any words on the pages. You just talk about what you're seeing, and that's developing language skills
It
as
is.
well, and
Mhm.
also develop imagination. So, yeah,
Yeah.
as you said, priceless. Reading is priceless. Well, Mary, thank you so much for
Oh,
joining us.
I love it. I love it.
I appreciate you joining us. Do you promise that you will come back and talk about life, homeschooling 7 children? You have lots
Absolutely.
of different grade levels. Okay. Well, I know you've got a busy couple of weeks ahead of you, but we'll circle back around and talk about that.
Okay.
So don't hang up, but I'm going to go ahead and end our live
Okay.
broadcast for our
Thank you.
homeschoolers. And thank you so much for joining us today. I hope that this was helpful to you. And we'll see you again tomorrow. Another Tips at 3. And I think we're going to be talking about 2 things. We're going to be talking about sending your children back to public school. We know some of you are only with us for a little while. But then we're also going to be talking about this recent op-ed that NBC News shared. So lots to talk about the rest of this week. So we'll see you at Tips at 3. Bye-bye.